Hello and welcome to our tutorial. This tutorial is going to be on retopologizing. So while our troll is far from finished, we have to add lots of wonderful accessories to him. We are going to stop sculpting. Now I could sculpt this guy for a long time. There's not a lot of detail, but keep in mind we still have our preview turned down here, so we have two more layers of subdivision with detail in them. I have hidden here, if I go Alt-H, my low polygon model, so I'm just going to hide the high polygon model. So in the last video I had gotten 3/4 way through retopologizing this guy, and what I've done is I've just gone and finished that off without recording it. Why have I done such a dastardly thing? Well, because it's very boring to watch, I imagine. So a couple of things to point out. So I've used a technique here where I had 4 vertices and only 2 coming up from the body, and rather than making triangles, I made 2 go short. I've made this sort of trapezoid here, it's a quad, and then that kind of reduces the 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices I had coming down to 2. I've done that repeatedly across the neck in order to reduce the number of verts coming down. I also introduced a number of cuts onto the chest to have more geometry, and then I've repeated that process here so that the amount of geometry going down the body is not the same as the amount in the face. And I've also repeated that process here, you can see in the shoulder blades, so that we don't have, if there's whatever 30 or 40 lines of vertices here all streaming down through the body, because there'd just be too many verts to manage in our animation. So that's my low polygon model. Now to retopologize it, I need to unwrap it. So as I look at this now, so it still has a mirror modifier on it. So I'm going to, can I delete that or apply it? No, apply it. That didn't work out too well there. So yeah, there we are there. So we've got all our geometry on this side, and in object mode we'll apply this. Okay, so this is our model here. We have, if we go and select everything, we have here just under 3,500 verts, which is a fantastic low number, considering how many millions we have on the other one. So how do we UV unwrap it? And in fact, let me just go back a step or two. I'm just going to Control Z now, so let's go back to my mirror modifier. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to unwrap it with the mirror modifier on. So I only have to unwrap one side, and then the unwrapping will be transferred across when I apply. So I'm going to select this line of verts here to add a seam. Now what you're really trying to do is have invisible seams. So I'm going to go Control E is the edges menu. I'm going to go Mark Seam. If I go into wireframe mode, you'll see it's displayed in red. So there are a couple of obvious places. I'm going to bring in a seam around here. Now I will have to cover some of these seams, but I may cover them with props, like I might put some armor on it over his shoulder or something. Control E, Mark Seam. I'm going to cut the face open up to about there. So Control E, Mark Seam, and do the same down here. So from that point on, back. Control E, Mark Seam. Now, a couple of small things I might try and do here. I might try and mark a seam around the base of this toot slash fang. Now, as I look at it here, there isn't a, so let me select that face there and see if I can delete it. And go back into vertex select. I'm actually going to put in 2 triangles, which I normally wouldn't do, but that's going to allow me to create a very nice seam to go all the way around this. So we can cut it out. So Control E, mark seam, and then your model may have a larger ear area. I think I'll get away with not separating that out. Now we will add a seam here. Maybe, is that a better seam? It's probably a better seam around there. Okay, so Control E, mark seam, then our hands. So I'm going to cut out the thumb and then try and split it open. So all the way around, and then we'll bring a seam up here all the way to the top. So Control E, mark seam. Same here. And then I'll try it. So again, we're trying to hide the seam, so hence I'm putting the seam on the inside of the finger rather than across the top of it. So Control E, mark seam, and then do the same here. And there, and we'll bring this up. Actually, this one here is probably, no, okay, so this one. Okay, so Control E, mark seam. So let's just go into wireframe mode. I press Z, and we'll have a look. And that's not too bad. Probably need to not do that, but so we have a when we apply the mirror modifier, we're going to have geometry either side. If there's no seam to split the back in two, so basically we need to do that. So that basically we can peel the torso open flat. We need to have a seam that can cut open. So Control E, mark seam, and then this is a habit I've gotten into from doing characters like this, sort of dinosaur-esque characters with big feet. It's gonna select the outline here of the foot, or the base of the foot. I'll go deselect some in a minute. No, so I need that, or that, or that, or that. So that the base of the foot will separate out. So Control E, mark seam. Okay, So we've added in all our seams. We're going to go into object mode, apply our mirror modifier now, and if we go into edit mode, you'll see that those seams have been passed across, which is handy so we don't have to do it twice. Select it all, and this is the sort of the retopologizing part of this exercise. So we need to go to the UV image editor and go U and unwrap, and we'll find out. So this is my render, so I need to sorry, didn't mean to do that. Hit X here. So that's a good unwrap. It's not a bad unwrap at all. So we need to figure out what's what. Okay. So there's a few things we need to improve upon, just to let you know what area is what. So these are fingers that have been unwrapped. That's probably the thumb. That's probably down here. These are the two arms. No, these are the two arms, and I think that's a leg, and that's a leg. No, I'm not 100% sure. We'll figure it out in a minute. This is obviously the torso. This is the head. So let's actually find out what's what. So if I select this leg, we see that that is the leg. So it hasn't unwrapped terribly well, because these are very close and overlapping, and we've got the same problem with the arm, where so the fingers have actually unwrapped well, but this is not great. So this area here, this middle here, is this mess is the hand. So where we'll want quite a bit of detail. These are tiny islands. So how do we fix that? Well, we're going to unwrap it again, but we need to add in a few more seams. So let's add one in there. Mark seam. Same on this side. Control E, mark seam. Let's cut our legs. Control E, mark seam. And actually, no, I can undo the mark seam there. What's wrong with the legs is that they're coming out as cylinders. Actually, that's what's wrong with the arms as well. Interesting. Actually, okay, so what we're going to do at these is, and you'll see, hopefully this will make sense now. So I'm going to take a vert here and run it all the way down. Control E, mark seam. Now, and that's that one there. So here. Now, when we unwrap the legs, Control E, mark seam. So it's going to select the whole model again and unwrap it. And we should get a completely different, so the arms should still be a mess, but, the legs, yeah. So this now, and this are the legs, which is much better. It's not perfect, but much better, and we still have these two kind of messy arms. So, let's go fix that. So I'm going to make that selection there. So this is going to cut. Now I don't need this stuff here. Okay. Nor do I need. Well, actually, I can leave that in and let it run as far as the hand there. So that line. So I'm going to create that as a seam, so Control E, mark seam. And I'm going to remove this line here, Control E, clear seam. And do the same on that side, so this one we'd added in, clear seam. And this is the line coming up from here, so that's that one. And again, we don't want, so C, all in the middle nice. We don't want these ones selected. And Control E, mark scene. So now, select it all, you unwrap. And we should have, again, not perfect, but far better than the mess that we had. So if we look at this as an arm, we can see this is sort of the top of the arm, the elbow, and then this is the hand area. This is the bit we've cut out where the thumb was, and this is where the other two, where the fingers have come out. So that's fantastic. So we've, been much easier to texture. There is an interesting tool that we can use. So I'm going to select this and hit L, which selects the island or the linked vertices, and I can go Control V. And what Control V does is it tries to make all of the islands, all of the islands is the wrong word, all of the polygons, all of the quads, the same size. And so I'm going to do that again, Control V, and it'll keep going for, well, forever, I think, trying to equate them until you left-click, until you're happy with where it's gone. And quite often you'll get the verts around the eye and the nose area and the mouth will be quite compressed and very small gaps between them. So again, when we try to put in detail, there won't be enough space to get the detail in there. Now, UV unwrapping is an art form. At the moment, what we have here are islands that are kind of the wrong size. The detail on the arm should not be a bigger or a larger amount of detail than the face. The face should have the most detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition some of these islands. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go G and move the face out. I'm going to go L, scale this down a little bit. That's an arm. And rotate it. And go G and move it up to there. I'm going to go L, scale this down a bit. Move it up higher. L, get that in there. L. This is my torso, which I want to be large. L, and rotate it. Scale this to my leg. And L. See if I can fit that in there. And then that gives me sort of maximum amount of space down here for this. Now, I'm going to go L, scale it on X, and scale it on Y. So, not perfect. There's a lot of space here I'm not using properly. So there's gaps here I'm not availing of. So I should maximize my real estate here. But for now, that's fine. I've made the face area a bit bigger. So what I can do now is I can go UV, export UV layout, and I'll call this Troll UV. So I have a reference. So that's going to export a PNG file with this sort of that we can bring into Photoshop and play with. But most importantly, what I want to try and do is bake across the detail from the high resolution model to the low resolution model. So in order to do that, I need to create an image here. So I'm going to go New Image, and I'm going to make it 2048 by 2048. And we'll make it white, and we'll make it UV grid. Actually, yeah. So which will negate the white. We'll go OK. Now, what's here really doesn't matter because it's we're going to put a normal map on top of this. So the normal map is if I just very quickly show you this. So this is normals. If I turn that on, you'll see that each face has a direction and an angle. And there's whatever number of faces we have, 3,500, so there's 3,500 normals. Now, what we're doing is we're going to take the information about the normals from the high resolution mesh, so 4 million of these, and then apply that data to this model. And hopefully what that'll do is it'll give the illusion of detail through that image. So let's see how that works. So, how do I bake across a normal map? Well, I want to unhide my high resolution map and hit A to deselect everything. I'm going to go to my render settings, and at the bottom of the render settings, now I'm in Blender Render, not in Blender Game. At the bottom of this render window, there's a bake panel. Now, before I bake this, I'm going to save it. I'm going to save as Troll Stage 8. Now, it says, what do I want to bake? I want to bake a full render, right? I don't want to do that. Or ambient occlusion, we will be doing that in a little while, but I want to bake a normal map, so normals. That's the first thing I want to select. There is a way to bake it from multi-res. We're not going to do that. What we're going to use is this tab here, selected to active. Okay. So selected is going to be, I'm going to select my high resolution mesh. There it is there. And then I'm going to shift select the low resolution mesh. So if you can imagine selected, which is what I have now, to active. And active will be the second one that I select. Okay, so select high resolution first, then shift and right click on the low resolution one. So selected to active. And then I click bake. And it should take a lot of RAM, not too much, but a decent amount of RAM, and maybe a decent amount of time. So we're going to select bake. If you've selected them in the wrong order, at this point here it might take 10 or 20 seconds, and then it'll give you a console appear, and it'll run an error. It'll say nothing to bake. If you haven't created an image here, so I've created this blank image, I haven't named it yet, it's called untitled, but if there's no image here, if you've got the UV map, but you haven't clicked new, it'll also return an error. It'll say there's nothing to put the baked data into. So those two things need to be done, or when you click bake, it will return an error. Now, as I look at this, some of the information won't bake across properly. So any time we've got, like, so here for this tone sticking out here, the proximity of one surface to another will determine how accurate the bake is, or how much detail is baked across. We can actually set the margin here of like how much, so extends the baked result, and this one here is distance, is maximum distance from the active object to another object in Blender unit. So we can actually tweak this process here of baking a normal map to bake detail that's slightly further away from the underlying mesh. But you can see here it's finished now. So it took, 60 seconds, maybe a bit longer. And what we can see here is particularly some of the kind of skin tone detail that's been baked in, and the teeth. So that's quite a decent normal map. So point out to you very quickly that this, with this little star here, suggests it has not been saved. So I'm going to go save as image, and I'm going to go with Troll UV normal map. Excellent. And we'll call this norm. Great. So now what I'm going to do over here, just to sort of complete this process, is I'm going to select the high resolution troll and press M and move it to another layer. It's layer number 2. So now I've got this guy. Now it says display wire. So that was very useful to have all that, that information, but I don't want it anymore. Now, how do I get this troll, this low polygon troll, to now have that high resolution normal map baked onto it? Well, first of all, I need to give it a material, so I'll give it this troll color material. So we'll go into texture mode. There it is. In order to see the normal map when we put it on, it must be in GLSL. If we're in multi-textured mode, it's gone weird there, Audie. We won't see it. So next thing is, so we've got this material. Let's go to our texture. Now at the moment, it's there's no real texture here. It says type none. So we'll call this troll, and we'll call this troll normal map. And we're going to bring in an image. Now what coordinates are we using? Well, we're using UV coordinates because we unwrapped it. And so I'm going to open the image, and we called it Troll UV Normal Map. You can see it's just under 5 meg. So let's open that, and there's our image there, which is not bad, but not what we're looking for. But we can see that it's in the right place, so this detail is where it should be, but it's now being expressed as a color rather than as a change to the geometry, the underlying geometry. So scroll down a bit further, and we have some further options. So let's open these windows here and see what we've got. So the first thing here under image sampling, we can tell it that it's a normal map. That's very important. That must be turned on, and that we're using tangents. That says tangents by default. Under image mapping, it says repeat. That's fine. And now under colors, where are we? Influence, that's what I'm looking for. There we go. So under influence at the moment we have color turned on, which is why we are seeing this weird pattern here. So I'm going to turn that off. And what we want to turn on is geometry, normals. Now, there's our troll. So we can determine how much detail or how strong the influence is from the normal map with the slider here. So at 0, 0, 0, 0, it hasn't got a lot of influence. We have this very low polygon character. And then as I slide this up, we can see the detail of the sculpt starting to appear on the low resolution model. You don't want it to be too strong. So let's have a look through our camera, and let's press F12. So that's how he looks there. Interesting. So let's have a look at the setup in our scene here. We've got a lamp in front of him. We've turned on our world settings. We've got ambient occlusion turned on. So let's go back to our lamp here and make it a spot. And rotate it up. Rotate it. We'll do that. Give him some shadows on his face. Make him a bit creepy. There you go. So it's looking good, and we want to turn off what's turned on here. So we have in our world settings we have ambient occlusion turned on. So we'll turn that off, and we'll go to rendered. So that's a bit closer than what we see in the viewport. Okay. So go back to textures and press F12, and there's our character there. So that's not too bad at all. So now what I'm going to do, just as a comparison, I'm going to go to layer number 2, which is our character here. I'm going to go move to layer 1, go back to layer 1, And my troll is selected. I'm going to go GX, and we'll move him 8 units across. We'll give him his own spotlight, so Shift D and GX 8. Ooh, yeah, GX 8. Now, there we go. And we'll reposition our camera here to sort of accommodate both of them. Now, so I'm just going to go File, Save, and with this model here, I'm going to increase his multi-res, which is going to bring our our vert count up enormously and probably cause me to crash. But I just want to render the two of them together with their full detail turned on, and see if there's an enormous difference in the detail that we can see in the render from a 4 million vertex model to a 4,000 vertex model after the normal map has been baked across. And of course, one is completely unusable in a game, and the other is more than usable. Okay, so let's press render. Now this will take a little bit of time, as there are 4 million verts to be rendered. You can see here it's 4.47 million. But the result of this image should give us a decent comparison of how much, so what the original model looks like compared to the low poly baked model. So I have no idea how long this will take. Hopefully not too long. And you can see we're using, we're peaking at 3.5 gig of RAM. I'll probably go up as it starts to render. Maybe this was a bad idea. Oh, here we go. So we'll compare like with like. We'll compare this arm, left arm over here. One of the things what you'll find when you experiment with this is that how well lit the low polygon character is will actually determine how well the normal map looks on it. So we can see a lot of detail over here that isn't being kind of transferred. So this detail here that isn't visible here at all. Obviously we have slightly different perspective on both of them, so we're going to start having a little zoom in here as it renders. So we've got a lot of detail here being picked up. And you know what, actually, I think I know what is I think this model also has the normal map on it. So they seem to be the same color, but which would mean this would have double the detail it should have. But so we can see, but just as a a basic comparison, so there's an awful lot more detail on it than this. This does have some skin detail on it, and you can see that the rounding of the shoulders here, you can see individual like planes, so it's more angular, whereas over here it's completely smooth. So one is not in any way as convincing as the other. but this process with a bit of refinement can give you a lot of detail, um, and make the model far more aesthetically pleasing than it would otherwise be. Okay, so we will yeah, so we will leave it at that for now, and if you can follow that process of retopologizing the character, so taking your model, UV unwrapping them, and then baking across the detail from one to the other, then you'll have done a lot. It's quite a complicated process.